would like to talk to you about two muscle groups. First off, the hip flexors, and then posterior, the backside, the glutes. So both of these are very large muscles, very powerful muscles within your lower body. And oftentimes they can become tight or injured, and oftentimes they also are very much in sync, meaning they work together on a lot of movements, and when one's not functioning, the other may be part of the reasoning, or can be taken down by the lack of strength in one of them, or tightness. So hip flexors are located in the front of your lower body, right near the inner thigh, and down along the pelvis region. These can become very tight. We have something called the sitting disease. This is new. We call it this because a lot of jobs these days are sitting jobs. Not everyone has taken advantage of those standing work desks. And then we have people who just are more sedentary. What that means is they're not as active and they sit too much. So the sitting disease, what it is tight hip flexors and then very weak glutes that don't activate properly. And then it leads to some injuries and some pains, like lower back pains, different muscle groups working harder than they should, because these areas, hip flexors and glutes, are not working the way they should. You're hindering them by sitting too long. Whenever you're using your hip flexors, those movements are like walking. Simply walking, you're using your hip flexors, or very much during running and sprinting even. And you use it when you're lifting your legs, like going up steps, and you use it with kicking, such as a soccer ball. These muscles, like I've said, can become very tight from sitting too much, so it's important to stretch them, preferably daily, or every other day at least. And one stretch that you can do is called the couch stretch. This is where you place your back leg onto the couch, and you can kneel down while extending but yet bending the front foot forward, and you lean into somewhat of a lunge, and you begin to feel a stretch not only in the upper thigh, but more importantly in that hip flexor region. It's a really good stretch. Also in yoga, we call the runner stretch, where you're leaning into a lunge but you're kneeling. That is very good for helping tight hip flexors and stretching. And then also there's the butterfly stretch, where you can take your soles of your feet and place them together, and then you're flexing your knees, but you're bending them outwards, and so you're stretching those hip flexors. Now the glutes are also one of the strongest muscles in your body, and these muscles are on the back side opposite your hip flexors, so you can see how they tag team, and they can be injured together, or one can cause another to be affected in some fashion. These glute muscles can often be forgotten, even though they're so dynamic and you use the glutes in so many movements like running and sprinting and balancing on one leg. When you stand on one leg, you're really using those glute muscles. Whenever I oftentimes like to do reverse lunges. So this is an exercise I'm really targeting my glutes specifically. And I really feel my glutes working when I do those reverse lunges. You could do squats, and you can even do wall squats. Those are going to tap into those glute muscles. I don't know if in yoga if you ever have done a chair pose, but it very much works your lower body, especially those glutes. And then in Pilates, you may have done a side plank and you elevate that top leg and you'll feel a portion of those glutes working. And some stretches you can do for the glutes. If you've ever done a figure four, you can do that sitting at a chair. You can do it standing, or you can even do it laying down. And it's just crossing one leg over the top of your knee, angling it out and leaning into it. And you'll begin to feel a nice stretch in your glutes. And you'll feel it. You'll feel in your hips as well. Downward facing dog is a yoga pose, and you'll feel a nice stretch in your glutes. You'll feel it in a lot of lower body muscles, but you're also getting into the glutes. And then the seated twist, which I like to call the pretzel, where you are sitting down on the floor, you extend your legs out, you bend one knee in, but you cross it over the other, and then you do a little twist. You'll feel the muscles in your back being stretched, but you'll also feel those glutes being stretched. The glutes, like I said, are very dynamic, and that sitting disease will affect your glutes because you're not using your glutes. Sometimes you can experience what's called glute amnesia. Amnesia is a fancy word where your brain forgets. And sometimes people get brain injuries where they experience amnesia, they forget. Well, it's just a funny way of saying your glutes are forgetting what to do. And because of that, when you go to run or move, other muscles that are smaller take over and they end up getting injured because they need those power muscles. They need the glutes to work. And many people who sit a lot and don't work a lot, they have glute amnesia and they don't even know it. And it could be the source to their low back pain, or why their hamstrings are always getting injured, or their calves when they go to run are always tightening up. And working those glutes as well as stretching them will prevent amnesia to them. Also those hip flexors, stretching them out, keeping them nice and limber is going to prevent them from getting tight and also contributing to some injuries like low back pain again, among other things. So I hope this has helped you understand two major muscle groups in the lower body and how important they are for you.